Welcome back, guys. Welcome to Minko's Corner. I'm your host, Minkoy. By the way, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been putting this short, okay, for like the past since I started this channel, and nobody has commented on fucking. Please, someone recognize this. Argyle? Are you fucking kidding me? Nobody has said anything. Anyways, I hope you like my. Today we're going to be reacting to another video from Sabaton. Yesterday I reacted to about the First World War, about the Nazi Party and the rise of evil. And today we're going to be continuing the series. Today we're going to react on the defense of Moscow in autumn 1941. I don't know that much about it. I know when you look at the map, there are multiple videos. Yeah, I might even make a reaction on them, where you see the Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of Russia by the Germans in 1941. In like a few months, they went from their borders all the way to Moscow before the end of 41. So that for the next 3 years, it was all backwards from there. Anyways, I hope you like my reaction. If you do, like, subscribe, and let's go on, guys.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Joachim from Sabaton.
And this is another exciting, thrill-packed episode of Sabaton history.
And this week, it's the defense of Moscow.
Defense of Moscow in 1941. The Axis invasion of the USSR in World War II was codenamed Operation Barbarossa, and the drive on Moscow, Operation Typhoon. Before I talk about this, I will say that it is an enormous subject, and over on my World War II weekly channel, I covered the events of Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history, week by week, each and every week in detail, with a whole bunch of special episodes about things like logistics and planning and all. Please check that out for a better understanding.
The amount of information you must have to make a week by week video, because that went on for like a few, I think it started in June. I might be wrong here, but anyways.
There is a link below. Anyhow, on June 22nd, 1941, Germany and her allies began what was supposed to be Adolf Hitler's magnum opus, the conquest of the Soviet Union. Communism would be destroyed, and Germany would have unlimited space for living, unlimited resources to live off, and the Slavic peoples as a servant class for the master Aryans. Despite the massive buildup of millions of soldiers across the border, the attack took the Soviet Union completely by surprise. Joseph Stalin had been warned repeatedly over the year of planning that went into the offensive that it was going to happen, but he didn't believe it.
Why?
Even thinking by the summer of 1941 that the rumors were a British plot to get him to turn on Germany. See, up until June 22nd, Germany and the USSR were operating under the terms of the Molotov-Ribbentrop.
Well, they were not allies. There was another aggression pact between them. And basically, when Germany invaded Poland, they divided Poland in half, and then the Russians conquered the Baltic states. But I don't understand. Like, why wouldn't you trust your own spies? You know, they're coming to you. They're saying, "Listen, there's a military buildup on the border, millions of men," and you're like, "I don't trust you, man."
Pact, which had divided Eastern Europe into zones of conquest between the two powers.
Yeah.
Germany was also importing huge amounts of oil every month from the USSR. Still, anyone who read Mein Kampf could see that one day Hitler was going to make an all-out attack on the USSR. It was his ultimate military goal. And June 22nd, 1941 was that day. That had not been the original date, though. It had been set for May 15th. I am aware that there are many people who believe the invasions of Greece or Yugoslavia or Crete in the spring of 1941 are what altered the timetable, but that is not the case. Before you comment, I should point out that history is what actually happened, not what we would like to have happened.
Yeah.
The invasion of Greece was planned simultaneously with Barbarossa already back in late 1940. All the units were allocated already then and had their timetables when they had to head north for Barbarossa. And that invasion went more quickly than planned. The lightning conquest of Yugoslavia allowed that to happen. And the decision to attack Crete was not even made until after the Barbarossa date had been changed. The reason for the date changing was the lateness of the spring floods in 1941. You cannot bring 3.5 million men, 600,000 horses, and hundreds of thousands of tanks, trucks, cars, and motorcycles over the marshy, muddy ground created when the rivers of Eastern Europe break their banks in the flooding.
So
it
what?
is physically impossible.
If there wasn't any mud, the invasion was started in May, and Moscow might have fallen.
And the ground was not hard enough for the invasion to possibly take place until the second week of June at the earliest. Anyhow, the enormous offensive was hugely successful straight off the bat. And over the summer, prisoners were taken by the hundreds of thousands as panzer thrusts surrounded cauldrons of entire Soviet armies. But even during its greatest successes, the operational flaws of Barbarossa could be seen. The Soviet Union has two great advantages in warfare: endless men and endless space. And the colossal distances involved for the attackers to cross and supply wreaked havoc with German logistics already by early July. There were few roads, and German trains were a different gauge from the Soviet ones. So whole new track systems had to be built because the Soviets destroyed their rolling stock, installations, and, well, everything as they fell back or were pushed back. Also, whereas in the Battle of France, the panzers could fill their tanks at roadside gas stations, the Soviets used a
Oh, I remember this anecdote that when Hitler was marching through Austria, and the Anschluss and all that, 1938, I think, there was a tank. By then, the Wehrmacht was not up to par, sorry, and there was a tank that didn't have enough gas. Ended up, pulling up to a gas station and refilling. Like, imagine you're just sitting in your car and you see a tank coming behind you. That would be
different
fucking
octane
nuts.
gasoline. Basically, everything that was needed to supply the millions of men and their animals and vehicles had to be brought in from further and further away as the summer turned to autumn and the Soviet resistance grew stiffer and stiffer.
As the Wehrmacht overrun, Russia 1941, they don't belong, we stand our ground, 1 million strong. We are ready for the strike, face the army of the Reich, 1 million strong, this is our land, they don't belong.
It's a pretty good song, man.
But this episode is not about Operation Barbarossa. It is about Operation Typhoon, the German drive on Moscow. The orders for the operation are issued September 6th and call for the destruction of the forces blocking the Moscow road in the limited time which remains available before the onset of the winter weather.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Operation Typhoon begins October 2nd. Hitler announces, "Today begins the last great decisive battle of the year. At last, we have created the prerequisites for the final tremendous blow, which, before the onset of winter, will lead to the destruction of the enemy." Actually,
Should have read
the night
history, man.
before, he issues a proclamation to be read to the troops that, in barely 3 months, you have taken over 2 million prisoners. You have destroyed.
Jesus Christ. I spit all over the computer. Jesus Christ. Sorry about that. 3 months, 2.4 million prisoners. You have destroyed or captured 18,000 tanks and 21,000. That's 3 months, man.
Destroyed or captured 17,500 tanks and over 21,000 guns. You have downed or destroyed on the ground 14,200 planes. The world has never seen anything like this.
Yeah, it is
Which
insane.
may well be true, but, they still haven't won. Dr. Heinrich Happe, who's been with the spearheads of Barbarossa since June 22nd, writes that in spite of such staggering losses, east of the Meja, the Russians prepared a strong system of trenches, bunkers, tank traps, and barbed wire entanglements, brought up supplies and...
I mean, it was total mobilization for the Russians. Everybody worked. Women, child, anything. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. But it's insane, the progress. The 2.4 million men captured in 3 months. That's 3 months. You know? It is pretty insane.
Gathered their strength to stand against us once more. And just a side note, there is no guarantee that even taking Moscow will mean the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
The offensive...
Listen, Moscow falling wouldn't have mattered to Stalin. It would have, it would have had an impact on morale, 100%. It would have been a huge blow. People who were far away, who didn't understand the logistics, who didn't know what was going on, who'd be like, oh my god, Moscow has fallen, it's over. Internationally, it would have been major news. But what, Stalin's gonna be like, oh, I took Moscow, I'm out. What? No way. The guy's gonna kill he's gonna just put another capital. He's gonna go to, I don't know, a major city in the Urals, somewhere backwards, in Siberia, I don't know. But first of all, Leningrad hasn't fallen. Moscow hasn't fallen. I mean, it's...
Immediately breaks through the Soviet positions. Panzer Group 4 advances 15 kilometers that day. Panzer Group 3, 20. On the 3rd in Berlin, Adolf Hitler gives his first national address since Barbarossa began. On the morning of June 22nd, the greatest struggle in the history of the world began. Today, I can state that everything has gone to plan. I may say today that this opponent has already broken down.
That's why I don't pre-celebrate. If someone tells me, listen, you haven't won yet, but I'm sure you will. Don't start celebrating yet. Okay, just be like, you know what? I'm gonna wait for the news.
And will never rise again. By that evening, the Panzers have advanced a full 50 kilometers. Panzer Army Commander Heinz Guderian reports snow on October 6th. But as John Keegan points out, it's hard to know which would be better for the attackers, a long autumn or an early winter. A long autumn will mean trying to advance through roads turned into swamps by the rains, which might not be possible, but an early Russian winter, will freeze the roads solid enough, but will bring blizzards and frostbite. As planned, while the Germans advance, Russian peasants set fire to the already harvested crops, blow up village buildings, and drive the animals away. They will leave behind literally nothing but blackened earth for the Germans.
Talk about that's total.
And the Red Army is really starting to fight back. And yet, the armored rings of Army Group Center's 3 panzer groups are slowly closing.
Yeah.
But already after the first few days, Guderian's and Hermann Hoth's panzers cannot advance temporarily for lack of fuel. The Luftwaffe does not have any sort of aerial supremacy, and the Red Air Force is making life difficult for the Germans on the ground. However, Soviet Army Chief of Staff Boris Shaposhnikov gets a report that a German column, 20 kilometers long, is advancing unopposed on Yukhnov, around a third of the way to Moscow. The plain fact is, German units are operating behind Soviet lines with nothing between them and Moscow. Joseph Stalin says to mobilize everything and hold the Germans for a week till they can bring in reserves. A new defense line should be built west of Moscow, anchored on Mozhaisk. The Western, Bryansk, and reserve fronts are now authorized to withdraw, but it seems to be too late. By the 7th, disaster is unfolding. Georgy Zhukov has arrived from Leningrad to take over Moscow's defense, but he sees the scale of the disaster. Both the Western and reserve fronts are in a huge pocket.
Are they going to capture the army?
Vyazma, and the road to Moscow is, in fact, open. Exciting, isn't it?
Dude, that's good! Gee, that's a good song. That's a really good song.
The weather changes at the end of the first week. Colder and with rain and snow. The Rasputitsa, the autumn mud, is beginning. Vasily Grossman writes, there's rain, snow, hailstones, a liquid bottomless swamp, black pastry mixed by thousands and thousands of boots, wheels, caterpillars, and everybody is happy once again. The Germans must get stuck in our hellish autumn. But Army Group Center's war diary that day proclaims, all corps have the order, forwards, forwards.
What are you,
forwards.
French?
By mid-month, there is panic in Moscow, and people evacuate east. But Zhukov has mobilized 250,000 Muscovites, most of them women, to build the city's defenses. After 3 weeks of Typhoon, stubborn defense and ever more mud, snow, and ice have prevented the Germans from reaching the city. But all the while, the German papers have proclaimed impending victory. American journalist Howard Smith in Berlin says that now really comes the breaking point for many German people in terms of trusting their government's accurate reporting of the war. Joseph Goebbels' diary says, our victory news is no longer accepted with the required attention and necessary importance. And even as Vyazma falls...
They captured the army? They captured the army? I was like, they were so close to Moscow. I was like, maybe the army somehow, will be able to get away. But they encircled and captured. I mean, it's over.
It drives home the question to the average German soldier.
How many?
Just how big is the Red Army?
Yeah.
Because they're still not beaten. Vyazma is just the first hurdle. And when Stalin gets the intelligence that the Japanese will definitely not attack the Soviets...
If the Japanese attacked, would the Soviets have been over?
Soviets in the east until at least the spring of 1942, he orders half of the divisional strength of the Far East to head west to hold Moscow. That's more than 8 divisions with 1,000 tanks and 1,000 planes. 500,000 people are now working on the city's defenses, but the Germans are just 100 kilometers away. However, the Blitz tactics, which had so utterly shattered the Soviet front in early October when conditions were dry and the Panzer forces more tightly concentrated, were now impossible. On October 30th, Operation Typhoon comes to a halt until the winter weather can freeze the ground enough for some mobility to return for the Germans. On November 7th, Joseph Stalin gives his famous speech of defiance in Red Square and the October Revolution Parade, promising the destruction of the German invaders.
The Germans are like 20 miles and they're making a parade. Are you kidding me, bro?
Their drive is renewed November 15th.
I mean, you gotta keep up morale.
Minus 20-degree weather. Lubricating oil freezes. Rifle bolts break. Sentries freeze to death. But the German advance continues. Advance units cross the Volga-Moscow Canal. General Konstantin Rokossovsky gets the order. Kryukovo is the final point of withdrawal. There can be no further falling back. There is nowhere to fall back to. The canal is now the last big obstacle before Moscow is surrounded from the north. On the morning of November 28th, German panzers are not more than 35 kilometers from the Kremlin. Erich Hepner's 4th Panzers take Krasnaya Polyana November 30th and are now in artillery range of Moscow. In the morning of December 1st, Gunther von Kluge's 4th Army launches a furious attempt to take the shortest route to Moscow, the Minsk-Moscow Highway. By noon, the Soviets have been pushed back several kilometers, and the Germans are 7 kilometers from the highway. Should they reach the highway and split the Soviet 5th and 33rd Armies, well, Zhukov cannot allow that to happen, so he throws everything he has left into the breach. On December 2nd, a German combat engineer patrol reaches Khimki, 18 kilometers from the city center, on a scouting mission. This is the closest the Germans get to Moscow. In a deep and terrible freeze, with German soldiers screaming in the snow that they could not go on, the last German bid for Moscow had failed. On December 4th, it is minus 37 degrees. Blizzards have begun.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ, minus 37? Are you kidding, bro? Minus 40? First of all, it's insane. This should be made. That sounds weird, but it's like a movie, isn't it? Like the German army comes just on the gates of Moscow, and then they get pushed back. But it's like just on the gates. Can you make it more dramatic? I mean, it's insane.
And the Wehrmacht has been stretched to its breaking point and has failed. And at 3 a.m., December 5th, the Great Red Army counteroffensive begins. But that, my friends, is a story for another day.
Oh, fuck you.
Face the bullets of their guns. Russia, the starters and her sons, are the brave who stand against the typhoon wave.
That's fucking
What
good.
is the tale for today? I'll ask you a question in a second, but this is the first episode with you that we've done in this new set.
Yes.
So what do you think?
So far, so good. It's
Yeah.
the first shot. There's a bit of sand on the floor, so it's really super beautiful. Even the historical part that we saw was the first part of floor.
Yeah, this is all new, and this is this is what's going to be the set for the next 11, 12 episodes whenever
like
they
that.
get to come out. Now, I'm holding a grenade.
Why?
Well, I can't let go of it, because then we'll have to build another set. Okay, but enough about me. The tale for today, all right? Tale for today, the defense of Moscow.
Yes.
Okay, well, tell me a little bit about this.
This is a bit of an unusual song, actually, because it's a cover. We've done covers before.
Yeah.
But this is a cover of a Russian guy called Radio Tapok. And in the past, he's done Sabaton covers. I would say, well, some of the most famous ones would be Attack of the Dead Men,
Right.
Night Witches, but check him out seriously. He's done a lot more stuff. And he made this song about the defense of Moscow
Right.
in the style of Sabaton. So
Okay.
it's his song that he did in the style of Sabaton. And we thought, well, he's done a bunch of covers of us. Why don't we
do.
make a cover of his stuff, you know?
Sounds good.
But, you know, in terms of covers, every band at some point does a cover of something, even if it's just messing around in their rehearsal room and stuff.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Oh, well, there's been quite a few. We've done, lately, we did some, well, I think one of the most famous ones or popular ones was In the Army Now, which is what I think most people would think is a status quo song, but it's actually a Bolland and Bolland song. So we
Yeah.
made a cover of the cover, I guess.
Now, when you guys first got together, your first rehearsals and stuff, were you already writing songs then, or was it mostly just covers until you beefed up your own repertoire?
A bit of everything, actually. When we started out and, sort of, had people coming and going and became Sabaton. I mean, it was basically the same bunch of friends listening to Judas Priest and Halloween and Iron Maiden and, drinking beer. There was a bunch of covers from all kinds of bands. But we really early, we started making our own music as well.
And you planned to be like 100% like this. Our show is 100% Sabaton music. Was the idea?
I mean, at that point, we didn't have a career plan or anything. We were just a bunch of guys drinking beer and having fun,
Well, what about other people's covers that might be either unexpected or things?
We learned
that
something
you
about the guy.
Think are a
He likes
cover of
beer, that's
something,
true.
and they're not. They're a cover of something different.
Well, for me, I mean, I hadn't known when I heard Johnny Cash play Hurt when that was released. I think it was Rick Rubin who
Yeah,
did the
when they did the
arrangements
American
for him.
songs, yeah.
And I didn't know that was a cover until a year later.
Oh,
That it was
a
a Nine Inch
cover?
Nails song.
Oh, I remember the Nine Inch Nails.
That was a cover? Hurt? That seems tailor-made to be sung by Johnny Cash. I don't know if you've heard it. It's a great song. Amazing song.
I like Nine Inch Nails back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the day. You see, it's not just Gina G and Bailando for me. I have a fairly broad palette. Hey, you want to hear a good story about a cover?
Bailando, you should ask Tommy about that song.
Can we get a picture of Tommy? Can we get a picture of the Bailando girls
Dude.
too? Can we
The
swap
hair,
faces
That's funny.
right
That's
now?
fucking
Okay,
hilarious.
wait. So what is the story with Tommy and Bailando?
No, you'll have to ask him, It's
Okay. Damn it.
he swore me to secrecy.
Okay.
That must be a good
No, but
story.
here's a thing of a cover of a cover. The Kingsmen do the famous version of Louie Louie that everybody knows, hello, hello, and everybody knows that and stuff. And a lot of people know that song is a cover. But the original version was a guy named Richard Berry in 1955. And the original version, if you find it, which we don't have the rights to, but it's super cool. It's my favorite version. It's really smooth, like 50s R&B, right? But the Kingsmen had not heard that version. They didn't cover that version. There was a guy in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State and Oregon, where the Kingsmen are from, called Rockin' Robin Roberts, who in the late 50s did a cover of that. And it has, because the original version doesn't go, hello, hello, that's not how the original version goes. Rockin' Robin Roberts sort of does some of that. But his cover sounds a bit like the original. But the Kingsmen cover sounds nothing like the original because they never heard the original. So they did a cover of the cover, thinking that they were doing a cover.
Man, I love artists.
I don't know the song.
Rockin' Robin Roberts.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And Richard Berry was apparently no relation to Chuck Berry, but he was a California-based R&B dude in the mid-50s. The things you learn here on Sabaton History.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I think that is actually it for today's exciting tale of glory and covers. Glory. I'm still holding this, you know.
Dude, imagine if the real great. I fucking love
Okay,
it.
well, that is it for Joachim and myself for today's exciting episode of the Sabaton History Channel.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and insert cool explosion effects and stuff now.
So, you know, it's really mind-boggling to realize how close the Germans were to Moscow. I mean, it's like what happened was they made this huge advance into Russia, and you think, you know, the Eastern Front, they went so deep. You think it took them years? No, they did it in 3 months, 4 months, from June all the way to like October, and then it was all backwards. They gained a lot of territory, then they couldn't hold it during the winter. They lost a bunch, and then in 1942 there was a push, 42 or 43. There was a push to get the Caucasus, to get the Yol from Baku. That failed, but overall it's an interesting history, and I wonder what the repercussions would have been if, you know, the capital would have fallen. Anywho, I hope you liked my reaction. If you did, give a like and a subscribe. Leave your comment, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.